Hey guys, tonight we're going to trade the myths of medieval Europe for the brilliant, baking sun of the Egyptian desert. We're traveling to the early 20th century, the golden age of Egyptology, a time of wealthy adventurers, obsessive archaeologists, and spectacular discoveries. We are going to explore the story of an ancient tomb, a sleeping king, and the long, strange shadow of a curse. We'll experience the thrill of discovery, the meticulous, back-breaking work of archaeology, and the slow, creeping dread that comes with unearthing ancient artifacts and the terrible consequences that can sometimes follow. Now for our little reality check. The life of a field archaeologist in the 1920s was anything but glamorous. You might picture finding golden idols and narrowly escaping rolling boulders. In reality, it was mostly about digging in the dirt for 10 hours a day under a punishing sun, getting horribly sunburned, dealing with flies and scorpions, and getting incredibly excited about finding a broken piece of pottery. It was a profession that required infinite patience, a high tolerance for discomfort, and the ability to see history in a handful of dust. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Your support is the funding that keeps these expeditions into the past going. And, as always, I love to see where you're joining from. So, post your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your story begins not in the golden sands of Egypt, but in the gray, smog-choked chill of London. The year is 1920. You are a young artist, a draftsman with a talent for precise, detailed architectural drawing. You scrape by, illustrating advertisements for tea and biscuits. Dreaming of a more adventurous life, a life you've only read about in books' tales of ancient ruins and forgotten treasures. One foggy Tuesday, you see a small, discreet advertisement in the Times. It calls for a draftsman of good character and steady hand for an archaeological expedition in Upper Egypt. Your heart leaps. This is the dream. You apply, sending a portfolio of your best, most detailed work, never truly believing you will receive a reply. A week later, a letter arrives on heavy, cream-colored stationery, embossed with a nobleman's crest. You have been granted an interview. You find yourself in a grand, intimidating study in a mansion in Belgravia. The room is a museum in itself, filled with Egyptian statues, Greek vases, and the faint, dusty scent of history. And you meet your potential patron, Lord Ashworth. He is a man in his late 40s, incredibly wealthy, with the restless, obsessive energy of a man who has never been told no. He is a passionate amateur Egyptologist, and he has sunk a considerable portion of his family's fortune into a single grand obsession finding the lost tomb of a minor New Kingdom pharaoh in the Valley of the Kings. The experts say the valley is exhausted, that there are no more tombs to be found, Lord Ashworth says, his eyes gleaming with a feverish light. I believe they are wrong. I have a feeling, a deep conviction, that there is one more great discovery to be made. I need an artist, someone to document our findings, to capture the details of what we uncover for posterity. Are you that man? He sells you the dream, and you buy it completely. The chance to be a part of history, to see the land of the pharaohs, to exchange the gray grime of London for the golden light of the Nile. You accept on the spot. 2 months later, you are on a steamship, watching the shores of England disappear into the mist. The journey to Egypt is a slow transition from one world to another. You cross the Mediterranean and dock at Alexandria. Then take a train south, following the green, fertile ribbon of the Nile as it cuts through the endless, golden desert. You arrive in Luxor, the modern town that sits beside the ruins of ancient Thebes. The change from London is a total sensory assault. The air is hot, dry, and filled with the scent of dust, spices, and cooking fires. The sounds are of donkeys braying, merchants shouting in Arabic, and the distant, rhythmic chanting of a muezzin from a minaret, you are met by the man who runs the excavation on the ground, a professional archaeologist named Mr. Davies. He is the opposite of the charming Lord Ashworth. Davies is a quiet, taciturn man, his face browned and lined by years under the Egyptian sun. He is a brilliant field archaeologist, but a man of few words and even less patience for romantic notions. He looks at your clean clothes and soft hands with a skeptical eye. He takes you by ferry across the Nile, from the East Bank, the land of the living, to the West Bank, the land of the dead. Here, nestled in a dusty valley near the entrance to the Great Valley of the Kings, is the expedition's camp. It is a small city of canvas tents, a dig house built of mud brick, and a constant, swirling haze of dust. You quickly learn there are two temperatures in the Valley of the Kings hot. And are we actually standing on the sun? Hot. There is no in-between. Your new life begins. And it is nothing like the adventure stories you read. Archaeology, you learn, is primarily manual labor. The Valley of the Kings, which most Egyptologists believe has been completely picked clean, is a scene of industrial-scale excavation. Lord Ashworth has secured the concession for this particular area, and Davies is determined to clear it down to the bedrock. You watch every morning as a team of over 100 local workmen and boys descends into the valley. Their task is to move thousands of tons of sand and rock debris, the discarded rubble from countless previous excavations. You see them using a small, portable Decauville railway, its light tracks laid temporarily to haul away the debris in small carts. The men work tirelessly in the punishing heat, chanting as they swing their pickaxes and fill their baskets with rubble. Your job as the expedition's artist is, at first, a deep disappointment. There are no golden treasures to sketch. You were hired as the expedition's artist, dreaming of sketching golden sarcophagi. So far, you've produced a detailed, to-scale drawing of a shovel, 3 broken pickaxe handles, and a very large pile of dirt. It's not quite the glorious career you envisioned. You spend your days helping Davies sort through mountains of pottery shards. Or ostraca, the limestone flakes the ancient workers used as notepads. You redraw old, inaccurate maps of the valley. You learn the boring truth of archaeology. It is a slow, patient, and often fruitless search. Lord Ashworth arrives for the winter digging season, bringing with him the glamour of the English aristocracy. He hosts dinners for other European archaeologists and wealthy tourists at the Winter Palace Hotel in Luxor. But at the dig site, his presence only increases the pressure. This is his passion, his obsession. And after several years of digging and finding nothing of significance, his patience is wearing thin. You listen to the debates that rage in the cool evenings. Many respected Egyptologists believe Lord Ashworth is wasting his money. The valley, they say, is an empty cup. It has been robbed in antiquity and excavated by modern archaeologists for a century. The great tombs of Rameses the Great and Seti I have been found. The treasure of Tutankhamun, a minor boy king, is the only major find still unaccounted for. And most believe his tomb, if it ever was in this valley, was destroyed by the builders of a later tomb. Future historians, looking back at this era, will debate the ethics of these great expeditions. Were they scientific endeavors or colonial treasure hunts? From your perspective on the ground, it feels like both a genuine, scientific desire to understand the past, fueled by a very personal, very expensive, and very aristocratic obsession. You settle into the routine of the dig. The initial romance of Egypt has been replaced by the reality of the heat, the dust, the flies, and the monotonous, back-breaking work. You have become a part of the strange, expatriate community on the West Bank, a small world of archaeologists, adventurers, and dreamers, all searching for their own piece of history under the relentless Egyptian sun. The digging season is drawing to a close. The heat is becoming unbearable. Lord Ashworth is growing more frustrated by the day, threatening to pull his funding. Davies is grim and silent, his hope dwindling. You stand at the edge of the vast excavation pit at sunset, looking out over the Valley of the Kings. The great cliffs glow a deep, burnished orange in the fading light. The place feels ancient, powerful, and deeply, profoundly empty. You begin to wonder if the experts are right. If this grand adventure, this dream you traveled across the world for, will simply end with you packing up your drawings of broken pots and returning to a life of illustrating tea advertisements in the London fog. You wonder if the last great secret of the Pharaohs is that there are no secrets left. That first digging season ends as it began with dust. Lord Ashworth returns to the comforts of his English estate, his enthusiasm dented by the lack of results. But his obsession not yet extinguished, he agrees, via a series of increasingly terse letters, to fund another season of work, and then another, and another. The years begin to blur into a single, repeating cycle, a rhythm governed by the sun and the Nile. In the autumn, when the fierce summer heat begins to relent, you and the other Europeans return to Luxor. The digging season begins. For months, your world is the Valley of the Kings, a place of back-breaking labor, meticulous recording, and a slow, grinding disappointment. Then, in the late spring, when the heat becomes an unbearable hammer, the season ends. The Europeans flee to the cooler climes of England or the Mediterranean. While the valley is left to the silence and the sun, your life becomes this cycle. Your youthful romanticism is baked out of you by the relentless sun, leaving behind a hard, weary professionalism. You are no longer an artist dreaming of adventure. You are an archaeological draftsman. Your skills become incredibly sharp. You can tell the difference between pottery from the 18th and 19th dynasties at a glance. Your hands, once soft, are now calloused and steady. Your drawings are no longer just pretty pictures. They are precise scientific records, capturing every crack in a pot, every faint hieroglyph on a limestone shard. You earn the quiet, unspoken respect of the taciturn Mr. Davies, which you come to realize is a greater prize than the loud praise of a dozen lords. The work is methodical, a science of brute force and delicate patience. Mr. Davies, a man possessed by a single, unwavering idea, has laid out a grid over the remaining floor of the valley. Your life's work is to clear this grid, square by square, all the way down to the bedrock, every morning. You watch the line of local workmen and their sons descend into the valley, their quiet chatter echoing in the cool morning air. They are the true engine of this great endeavor, the men whose sweat and strength move a mountain of ancient debris. One basketful at a time, you watch them swing their pickaxes, fill their woven baskets, and carry them up the steep paths to the Decauville railway cars, all for a few piasters a day. You mark the passage of time not by the calendar, but by the rising height of the mountain of discarded rubble you've created. Your primary contribution to the Egyptian landscape so far is a large, man-made hill of dirt. Each season begins with a flicker of hope. This square, perhaps, will be the one, and each season. You find things, tantalizing things, frustrating things. You clear a patch of ground and find the foundations of the ancient workmen's huts, the men who built the tomb of Ramesses VI. You find their broken tools, their discarded water jugs. It is a fascinating glimpse into the lives of the common men who built these great monuments. But it is not what you are looking for. You've just spent a month clearing a section of bedrock only to find a workman's broken water jug. Mr. Davies is thrilled. You are beginning to think your definition of thrilling discovery is different from his. The most significant find comes during the third season. Buried beneath one of the huts, you find a small collection of objects, a single faience cup, some bits of gold foil, and linen wrappings bearing the faint but unmistakable cartouche of the Boy King. Tutankhamun. The camp is electric with excitement for a week. But further digging reveals nothing more. It is another dead end. This is the Tutankhamun cache, the very find that convinced the previous excavator of this area that he had found all there was to find of this minor king. For Mr. Davies, however, it is the opposite. This is not a tomb, he insists, holding the faience cup as if it were a holy relic. This is refuse, this is the material from the king's funeral feast, or from the embalming process. It was ritually buried here. After his tomb was sealed, the tomb, therefore, must be nearby. His logic is sound, but it is the logic of a man obsessed, and it is a logic that is costing Lord Ashworth a fortune. The letters from England become more frequent, their tone shifting from encouragement to impatience. And finally, to thinly veiled threats. Another letter arrives from Lord Ashworth in London. He politely asks if you have found any golden pharaohs yet, and gently reminds you that his fortune is not, in fact, infinite. The pressure is subtle. Like a slowly closing fist, the rest of the Egyptological community, gathered in the evenings at the bar of the Winter Palace Hotel, now openly refers to your project as Ashworth's Folly. They speak with sympathy of the poor lord being led on a wild goose chase by the stubborn Mr. Davies. You and your small team become figures of pity. The men who are wasting their careers digging in a barren patch of rock, while others are making real discoveries elsewhere, the pressure takes its toll. The relationship between Davies and your patron, conducted through your own carefully drafted letters, becomes strained and formal. Davies grows more withdrawn, more obsessive, spending long hours poring over his maps of the valley, his conviction warring with the mounting evidence of failure. You, caught between the impatient lord and the obsessed archaeologist, feel the weight of the entire endeavor on your shoulders. There are nights when you lie on your camp bed, the desert wind whipping at the canvas of your tent, and you consider writing your letter of resignation. The dream has faded, and all that is left is the dust, the heat, and the endless, aching disappointment. What keeps you here is a stubborn kind of loyalty, a loyalty to the quiet. Brilliant, impossible, Mr. Davies, and a loyalty to the young man you were, the one who stepped off the train in Luxor with his heart full of romantic dreams. To leave now would be to admit that he was a fool, and so you stay. Another season passes, and another. The years of dust and doubt pile up. Finally, it comes to a head. The year is 1922. Lord Ashworth makes his position clear. This next digging season, the one beginning in the autumn, will be the last. He has poured too much of his fortune into this barren hole in the ground. He gives Davies one final season, if nothing is found. The concession will be relinquished. The great search will be over. You arrive in Luxor that November with a sense of finality. The mood in the camp is grim. This is not the hopeful beginning of a new season. It is the beginning of the end. There is only one small, unexcavated patch of ground left on Davies's grid. It is a forlorn, triangular area, directly beneath the entrance to the great tomb of Rameses II. It is a place no one would think to look for a king's tomb, as it is covered in the foundations of the very workers' huts you had excavated years before. The assumption had always been that nothing of importance could lie beneath them. It is your last chance, the last throw of the dice. Davies, his face set in a mask of grim determination, directs the workmen to begin clearing the huts and the rubble beneath them. You stand beside him, your sketchbook in hand, ready to draw what you are all certain will be nothing but another patch of empty, sterile bedrock. The years of dust and doubt have all come down to this final, hopeless corner of the valley. The final digging season begins with an air of grim resignation. It is November 1922. The mood in the camp is somber. This is the end of the line. The final, futile effort before Lord Ashworth's funding. And with it, the dream dries up completely. Mr. Davies directs the workmen to the last unexplored patch of the valley floor, a small triangular area in the shadow of the massive tomb of Ramesses VI. It is considered worthless ground, covered by the foundations of the simple stone huts that housed the workers who built that very tomb millennia ago. The work begins, not with hope, but with a sense of methodical duty, clearing away the last stones of the ancient workers' village for 3 days. The work is as monotonous and fruitless as it has been for the past 5 years. The men clear the hut foundations, digging through the layers of dust and debris beneath. You sit nearby, under the shade of a canvas tarp, dutifully sketching the layout of the huts. Another set of meticulous drawings of something no one is looking for on the morning of the 4th day, the course of your life, and the course of Egyptology. Changes forever. It doesn't happen with a great crash or a shout. It happens with a dull thud. A workman, clearing the rubble from the floor of a hut, strikes something with his pickaxe that is not loose rock. He calls over the foreman, the rays. They scrape away the surrounding dirt. It is a single, flat, man-made step, cut directly into the limestone bedrock. The work stops instantly. A hush falls over the crew. The foreman sends a boy scrambling to fetch Mr. Davies. Davies arrives, his usual weary expression gone, replaced by a sharp, electric intensity. He kneels, his hands touching the stone as if it were a holy relic. He gives a quiet, firm order. The heavy work with pickaxes stops. The men are now to use smaller tools, to clear the area by hand, basket by basket. What follows is the most tense and exhilarating week of your life. The years of boredom and doubt are burned away by a fever of anticipation. The first step leads to a second, buried just below it. Then a third. A staircase, filled with rubble and sealed by the passing of 30 centuries, is slowly, painstakingly emerging from the floor of the valley. It's a simple staircase leading down, but it's the most exciting staircase in the history of the world. You are at Davies' side constantly. Your job is now vital. You sketch every stage of the excavation, capturing the precise location of every stone, every basketful of dirt. Davies inspects the rubble being removed. It is a mixture of limestone chips and pottery shards, the detritus from the construction of the tomb of Ramesses VI above. "This is good," he murmurs. This means the staircase was likely covered over and forgotten during that construction, and has lain undisturbed ever since. The work is slow, nerve-wracking. Every man on the crew understands the importance of this moment. The usual chatter and work songs are gone, replaced by a focused, reverent silence, broken only by the scrape of trowels and the quiet orders of the rays. After days of careful work, they reach the bottom. 16 steps cut into the bedrock, leading down into the darkness, and there. Your heart seems to stop. Blocking the end of the passage is a wall of rough stones. Covered in a thick layer of plaster, a sealed doorway. It is intact. You and Davies approach. Your lantern's held high. The plaster is dark with age, but you can see impressions scattered across its surface, like stamps pressed into wet clay. You, with your artist's eye for detail, are the first to make them out clearly. You gently brush away the fine dust with your fingertips. They are seals, the official seals of the royal necropolis. You can clearly see the image of the jackal god, Anubis, crouched atop a row of 9 bound captives, the traditional symbol of the guardians of the dead, the protectors of the valley. This is it, a royal tomb, officially sealed. The excitement is so intense it feels like a physical pain. But as Davies examines the seals more closely, he notices something that tempers the elation with a new mystery. He points to a section of the plaster. "Look here," he says, his voice a low whisper. You see that some of the jackal seals have been stamped over a different, earlier set of seals that had been broken, and there is a darker patch of plaster near the top, indicating a hole that was made and then carefully, officially, re-plastered and resealed. It was entered. Davies breathes. At least once. Not long after the burial, robbers, but they were caught or disturbed, and the necropolis priests resealed the tomb. This is the great question that hangs in the air, a question that future historians will debate for a century. Is the tomb truly intact? Or did the ancient robbers make it to the main burial chamber? Have you found a king's treasure? Or just an empty, looted shell? The discovery is too momentous, too vulnerable, to proceed alone. Davies makes the agonizing decision to halt the work. He must inform Lord Ashworth that evening, in the quiet of the dig house. Davies drafts a telegram to be sent from Luxor to Lord Ashworth's estate in England. He hands it to you to read before sending it. The words on the thin paper are simple, professional, yet they contain the triumphant climax of a lifetime of obsession. At last have made wonderful discovery in Valley, a magnificent tomb with seals intact. Recovered same for your arrival. Congratulations. Now begins a new and terrible phase of the work the waiting. You cannot leave the entrance exposed. To do so would be an open invitation to the very real and very modern tomb robbers who haunt the villages of the West Bank. So the next day, the workmen are given a new, heartbreaking task. They must refill the staircase. You watch as they spend 2 days putting every basket of rubble back where it came from, burying the most important discovery of the century under tons of rock and sand, hiding it from the world once more. When it is done, the valley floor looks exactly as it did before, an unremarkable patch of dirt. But now, it is a secret. A guard is posted, and anew. Almost unbearable tension settles over the camp. You've finally made a world-shattering discovery, and you have to halt everything and wait for 3 long weeks for your boss to arrive by boat. It's the most agonizing to be continued in archaeological history. During those weeks of waiting, you do little but think and dream of what lies behind that sealed door. You take out your sketchbook and look at the drawings you made of the doorway and the jackal seals. They are the first images of this place to be seen by human eyes in 3,000 years. You stare at them, and you wonder, what lies in that silent, sealed darkness? A golden king, an empty room, a curse. The secret waits for you, sleeping under the sand. The 3 weeks you spend waiting for Lord Ashworth to arrive from England are a unique and exquisite form of torment. The frantic excitement of the discovery settles into a low, humming, almost unbearable tension. You have the secret of the century buried under a few tons of rubble. And all you can do is wait. The dig site is closed, and you and Mr. Davies post a 24-hour guard of your most trusted Egyptian foreman to ensure no one, local or foreign, gets wind of what you have found and tries to get to it first. You spend your days in the dig house, reviewing your sketches of the sealed door, your mind racing with the possibilities of what lies behind it. Finally, Lord Ashworth arrives in Luxor. He is a man transformed. The weary, impatient patron you knew from his letters is gone, replaced by a man giddy with the energy of a schoolboy, his lifelong dream on the verge of fulfillment. He is accompanied by his daughter, Lady Evelyn, a young woman who shares her father's passion for Egyptology. They cross the Nile to the West Bank immediately. You and Davies lead them to the site. There is no grand reveal, just the familiar patch of dusty ground. Davies gives the order, and the workmen, with a new sense of reverence and excitement, begin once more to clear the 16 steps. You watch Lord Ashworth's face as the top of the plastered doorway is revealed for the second time. You see the look of pure, unadulterated triumph in his eyes. All the years of expense, of doubt, of ridicule from his peers, it has all been vindicated by this simple wall of stone and plaster. Now, the true. Scientific work begins, before a single stone can be touched. The The doorway must be meticulously documented. This is your moment. You spend the better part of a day in the hot, cramped stairwell, creating a precise 2-scale drawing of the doorway. You map the exact position of every seal impression, noting the places where the seals overlap or where the plaster has been patched. Meanwhile, another member of the team, an expert photographer, sets up his cumbersome equipment. Providing enough light in the darkness of the passage for a photograph is a challenge. He uses a clever but dangerous technique: a wide, shallow bowl filled with salt, which is then saturated with alcohol. When lit, it produces a bright, clean, and intensely hot flame, momentarily illuminating the ancient seals for his glass plate camera. When the documentation is complete, Davies gives the order. With a heavy heart, you watch as the workmen begin to dismantle the very thing you just spent a day drawing. It is a slow, careful process. The stones of the blocking wall are removed one by one, each one numbered and its position charted. Your job is to draw an exact replica of a 3,000-year-old wall before they knock it down. It's like being asked to paint a portrait of a man right before his execution. The pressure to get the details right is immense. Behind the first doorway is not a treasure-filled chamber, but a long, descending passageway, stretching into the darkness, filled to the ceiling with limestone chippings and rubble. Lord Ashworth's face falls with disappointment. But Davies is encouraged. "This is good," the archaeologist says, his voice echoing in the passage. "This is what they did to deter robbers. They filled the entire passage after they sealed it. It means more work for us, but it also means there is something at the end of it worth protecting. And so begins another period of hard, monotonous labor. You found a secret passage to a lost pharaoh's tomb, and it's completely filled with rocks. Your reward for the greatest discovery of the century is another 2 weeks of hauling rubble." Day after day, the workmen carry out the limestone chips in baskets, a slow, patient river of white stone flowing out of the darkness. Davies, ever the scientist, sifts through every basket of this fill. It is a treasure trove of information. He finds fragments of pottery, a broken wooden box, the remnants of a beautiful floral collar left behind by the ancient mourners, or more likely, the ancient robbers. These small broken things tell a story. They confirm that people were in this passage after the original burial. The tension between your two leaders becomes a quiet drama. Lord Ashworth is burning with impatience, desperate to see what lies at the end of the passage. He wants the men to work faster. Davies, however, is a man of method. He insists on clearing the passage slowly, systematically, examining every handful of dirt for clues. You are caught in the middle, trying to keep the peace, relaying the scientific importance of patience to the eager lord. The ethics of your profession are being debated right before your eyes. Future archaeologists will look back at this era and question the methods. The rush for treasure versus the slow preservation of knowledge. You are living that debate in this hot, dusty corridor, after more than a week of relentless work. The passage is finally clear. It ends, as you all knew it would. At another wall, a second sealed doorway, almost identical to the first. This is it. The final barrier. Once again, you and the photographer perform your meticulous documentation. The plaster on this door is also stamped with the royal necropolis seals. But here, they are clearer. And among the images of the jackal, you can make out other, smaller seals. Davies leans in close. His excitement barely contained. He recognizes the impression. It is the personal seal. The cartouche of the pharaoh you have been searching for. The one the experts said was not here. But again, you see the evidence of ancient entry. A clear, dark patch shows where a hole was cut near the bottom of the door, just large enough for a person to squeeze through, and then later replastered and resealed by the ancient priests. The robbers had been here. they had passed through this very door. The great final question hangs heavy in the still, dead air of the passage. What did they take? And more importantly, what did they leave behind? The moment of truth has arrived. The workmen are dismissed, sent back up to the surface. Only the four of you remain you. The artist who will be the first to sketch what is seen, Mr. Davies. The obsessive archaeologist, Lord Ashworth. The triumphant patron, and his daughter. Lady Evelyn, her face flushed with excitement. The four of you stand before the sealed door in the silent. Subterranean passage. The air is thick with the dust of 3,000 years. This is the final barrier. Davies holds a small, sharp hand drill. Lord Ashworth holds a single. Lit candle. I am going to make a small hole, Davies says. His voice a strained whisper. Just near the top. To test the air and see if the chamber beyond is empty or full. He places the tip of the drill against the ancient plaster. The only sound in the world is the soft, scraping sound of the drill biting into the plaster. A sound that seems to desecrate the profound. Millennial silence after a moment. The drill breaks through. A puff of stale, ancient air, tasting of dust and forgotten perfumes, escapes from the hole. Davies tests the air with a candle flame to ensure there are no noxious gases. The flame flickers, but it holds steady. He then takes a piece of iron testing wire and pushes it through the hole. It does not meet a solid wall, it meets empty space. The chamber is not filled with rubble. Davies enlarges the hole, just enough to peer through. He takes a candle and holds it up to the opening, its small flame pushing back against a darkness that has not been disturbed since the time of the Boy King. He leans forward, his face pressed to the plaster, and he stares into the hole. He is silent, utterly, maddeningly silent. Lord Ashworth cannot bear the suspense. "Can you see anything?" he asks, his voice trembling with an almost unbearable anticipation. Davies seems to be in a trance. He moves back slowly from the hole, his eyes wide with a look of stunned, disbelieving awe. He turns to you and Lord Ashworth, and all he can manage to say, his voice a choked whisper, is, "Yes, wonderful things." The silence in the narrow, subterranean passage is absolute. Mr. Davies steps back from the small hole in the plaster, his face pale in the lantern light, his eyes wide with an emotion you have never seen in him before pure. Unadulterated awe. "Yes," he repeats, his voice a choked whisper. "Wonderful things." Lord Ashworth, unable to contain himself a moment longer, pushes past him. "Let me see, Davies. Let me see." He puts his eye to the hole, and a sharp, involuntary gasp escapes his lips. He is silent for a long moment, and then his daughter, Lady Evelyn, takes her turn. "Finally, it is your turn. The artist, the one whose job it is to see. You put your eye to the small, rough opening. At first, all you can see is darkness, and the flickering, swimming light of the candle that Davies is holding through the hole. Your eye struggles to adjust. Then, slowly, as if emerging from the waters of time itself, shapes begin to resolve in the gloom. You are not looking into a neat, orderly room. You are looking into chaos, a divine storage room, packed to the rafters with the jumbled property of a king. The candlelight dances and glints on the overwhelming, breathtaking glint of gold. Gold is everywhere. You see the curved, golden sides of dismantled chariots. You see the strange, elongated shapes of 3 great funerary couches, their ends carved into the shapes of snarling cheetahs and a celestial cow with golden horns. You see golden statues, golden panels, golden shrines. The room looks like a divine storage unit that hasn't been cleared out in 3 millennia. There are golden chariots parked next to alabaster vases and what looks like the world's most uncomfortable-looking cow-shaped sofa among the gold. You see other shapes, pale, translucent alabaster vases. So delicate they seem to be made of frozen light, intricately carved and painted chests. Strange. Black. Sealed shrines tied with ropes whose knots have not been touched for over 3,000 years. And guarding a sealed doorway on the far side of the chamber, you see two life-sized statues of the king, carved from wood and painted black, their skin of gold, their eyes staring blankly into the darkness. Eternal sentinels. Everything is covered in a fine, delicate layer of dust, and the air that escapes the hole smells of forgotten perfumes, dried flowers, and time itself. You feel a dizzying sense of vertigo, of unreality. You are the first person to see these things since the ancient priests walked out and sealed the door. The years of dust, of doubt, of backbreaking. Fruitless labor, it all dissolves in this single, breathtaking moment. The dream was real. The four of you stumble back out of the passage and up the 16 steps into the Egyptian sun. Blinking like men emerging from a cave, you are all stunned into silence, struggling to process the magnitude of what you have just seen. The tomb is not empty. The tomb is full. It is a treasure house beyond your wildest imaginations. Mr. Davies is the first to recover his professional composure. Security, he says, his voice sharp and urgent. We must seal the entrance at once. No one must know what is here. The next few days are a blur of frantic. Secret activity, a heavy, steel-grated door. A modern gate ordered from Cairo is installed at the top of the staircase. The stairs are once again filled with rubble, burying the ancient doorway. Guards are hired, your most trusted foremen, to watch the site day and night. But a secret of this magnitude cannot be kept. The sudden cessation of work, the erection of the steel door, the tents. Excited whispers of the European team, the news begins to leak out. Your small, quiet archaeological dig is about to become the most famous place on Earth. A week later, with security in place, the formal work begins. The second doorway, the one leading into the antechamber, is officially opened. The stones and plaster are carefully removed, and you and the team are able to step inside for the first time. The reality of the room is even more overwhelming than the glimpse through the peephole. It is filled to overflowing, and you now see the signs of the ancient robbers. A carved wooden chest has had its lid hastily broken open, its contents rummaged through. A small gold ornament lies half hidden under one of the couches, dropped by a thief in his haste. But it is also clear that the robbers were disturbed. Most of the great objects are still here. They took what they could carry easily, small boxes of jewelry and precious oils, but they left the grand treasures behind. Now, your true work begins. As the artist and draftsman, you must help to create the permanent record of this incredible find. Davies, a man of meticulous method, insists that nothing, not a single object, can be moved until it has been fully documented in situ. He lays a grid of strings across the room. Every object is assigned a number. The photographer begins his slow, painstaking work with his glass plate camera, and you begin to draw. You spend weeks inside that silent, stuffy antechamber, the air still thick with the scent of ancient resins. You sit on a small wooden crate, your drawing board on your lap, and you render the objects with a loving, scientific precision. You draw the golden chariots, their parts stacked against the wall. You draw the sentinel statues of the king. You draw a magnificent throne, carved and inlaid with gold and precious stones. Your work is slow, your focus absolute, and in this quiet, intimate work, you notice small, poignant details that others might miss. In a corner, you find the fragile, dried-out remains of a funerary bouquet, a small bundle of papyrus and olive leaves, left as a final farewell by one of the ancient priests. You sketch it quickly, knowing that the moment it is touched, it will crumble into dust. its 3,000-year-old beauty lost forever. As you work, you ponder the scene. Future scholars, will debate the meaning of this room. Was the jumble a sign of a hurried burial? The result of the robbers' frantic search? Or is there some hidden, ritualistic order to the chaos that you cannot perceive? You can only draw what you see, capturing not just the objects, but their strange, silent relationships to one another. The news of the discovery has now broken across the world. Your small camp becomes the epicenter of a global sensation. Journalists, government officials from the Egyptian Antiquities Service, wealthy tourists, and rival archaeologists all descend on the Valley of the Kings. A week ago, the only person who wanted to talk to you was your laundryman. Now, reporters from London, Paris, and New York are shouting your name, trying to get a comment. The quiet, scientific work must now be done under the bright, hot glare of public fascination. One evening, you're working late in the antechamber, seeking refuge from the chaos of the camp. You are alone, the only light from your pressure lamp, its hiss the only sound. You are meticulously drawing a beautiful, translucent calcite vase, its surface carved into the shape of a lotus flower. You feel a profound sense of peace and privilege to be the sole custodian of these fragile, beautiful things. Your lamplight flickers across the far wall, the wall guarded by the two great sentinel statues of the king, and you see the outline of another sealed doorway between them. The burial chamber, the king himself, and the heart of the treasure must lie beyond that wall as you stare at that final, sealed door. Your eyes are drawn to something on the floor, something half hidden in the shadow of one of the great funerary couches. It is a small, simple object, a shard of a pottery jar, easily overlooked in the splendor of the golden treasures. But there is writing on it. You pick it up carefully. It is an ostracon, a simple note. The hieratic script is clear, but it is not an inventory list or a prayer. It is a curse, a warning left by the ancient priests. You read the words, your blood running cold in the silent. Golden room. The inscription is simple and terrible. It promises that death will come on swift wings to him who disturbs the peace of the king. You stand in the silent, golden antechamber, the small, sharp-edged piece of pottery in your hand, the hieratic script. A cursive form of the ancient hieroglyphs is clear in the lantern light. You are a draftsman, not a master philologist, but your years of working with inscriptions allow you to haltingly translate the words. It is a protective inscription, an appeal to the guardians of the necropolis, but it ends with a clear and chilling warning to any who might enter with a profane heart. It speaks of a fiery demon that will wring the neck of a robber as a goose's. Your first reaction is not fear, but a jolt of pure academic excitement. This is an incredible find, a personal, immediate connection to the ancient mindset, a testament to their belief in the sacred power guarding this place. The next morning, you show the ostracon to Mr. Davies. He examines it with his usual, meticulous care, holding it to the light. Interesting, he says, his voice a dry monotone. A fine example of a formal warning text. It's priestly boilerplate, of course. They put these things on tombs all the time. It was a form of spiritual security, like putting a "beware of a dog" sign on your gate. He makes a note of it in his daily log and sets it aside, his focus already returning to the more practical problem of cataloging the contents of a large alabaster chest. For him, the curse is just another artifact to be numbered and filed away. Lord Ashworth's reaction is different when he sees the inscription. His eyes light up with a boyish, romantic thrill. "Magnificent," he exclaims. "A real pharaoh's curse. What an adventure, the newspapers will adore this." For him, it is not a threat, it is a feature. It adds a delicious spice of gothic danger to his great discovery. A story he can tell at dinner parties for the rest of his life. Between the scientific dismissal of Davies and the romantic excitement of Ashworth, you find yourself somewhere in the middle. You're rational. 20th century mind agrees with Davies. It is a fascinating piece of ancient belief. Nothing more. But alone in the tomb, surrounded by the possessions of a man who has been dead for 3,000 years. The priest's ancient warning does not feel like mere boilerplate. It feels alive. The secret of the curse inscription does not remain within your small European circle for long. The news of the tomb's discovery is the biggest story in the world, but the details are being carefully controlled by Lord Ashworth. The press is hungry for any new angle, and somehow, the story of the Guardian's tablet leaks. Perhaps one of your Egyptian foremen, a man named Selim, sees you sketching the inscription and asks what it says. You, proud of your deciphering skills, tell him. Selim's reaction is not one of academic interest or romantic thrill. He touches the amulet he wears around his own neck, and his face grows pale with genuine fear. For him, and for the other Egyptian workers, the power of such ancient words is not a matter of history. It is a living reality. The story spreads through the workforce like a fever. The men begin to whisper among themselves. They grow more hesitant to work inside the tomb. They start making protective signs when they pass the entrance. Their deep cultural belief in the power of such things is a palpable force. A new and unsettling energy in the camp. Then, the story reaches the journalists camped out in Luxor, and in their hands. It transforms. A reporter from a London tabloid, desperate for a scoop, gets a garbled, third-hand account of the inscription. He doesn't let the facts get in the way of a good story. By the time his report is sent by telegraph and printed in the London papers, your carefully documented text about wringing a neck like a goose has become something far more grand and terrible. Pharaoh's terrible curse found in Golden Tomb. The headlines scream. Inscription promises death on swift wings to all who defile the king's rest. The newspapers back in London have gotten hold of the story. Your simple inscription has been translated into a curse of death and doom shall befall all who enter. The press has a certain flair for dramatic interpretation. The story is a sensation. The public, already enthralled by the discovery of the golden treasures, is now captivated by this new, terrifying element. The curse of the pharaoh is born, not from an ancient, all-powerful magic, but from the ink of a desperate journalist. The consequences are immediate. Your small expedition camp is flooded with a new kind of attention. Letters and telegrams arrive from all over the world. Spiritualists and mediums offer their services to contact and appease the king's angry spirit. Religious fanatics send letters damning you all for your sacrilege. You've received a dozen letters from spiritualists in England. They all offer advice on how to appease the pharaoh's spirit. Most of the advice seems to involve chanting, special crystals, and sending the spiritualist a generous donation. The atmosphere at the dig site changes. The initial joyful euphoria of the discovery is now tainted with a subtle, creeping dread. The curse becomes a running joke among the European staff. Feeling all right today, old man? Or has the curse got you? Someone will quip, but the jokes are nervous. A way of whistling past a graveyard that they are all beginning to feel might actually be haunted. Your own mind becomes a battleground. You are a man of science and reason. You know the curse is a product of ancient superstition and modern sensationalism. And yet, the work in the tomb feels different now. The profound silence of the antechamber no longer feels peaceful. It feels watchful. The painted eyes of the sentinel statues seem to follow you with a cold, proprietary stare. Every small mishap is now viewed through the lens of the curse. A camera flash that fails to go off. A tool that is misplaced. A sudden headache from the heat. Every minor frustration is now followed by a moment of cold. Irrational fear. Is this it? Is the curse starting? You fight it. You focus on your work, on the beautiful, rational precision of your drawings. You are documenting the contents of a magnificent, carved chest. filled with the king's folded linen robes, still preserved after 30 centuries. The work is calming, an anchor of science in a rising tide of superstition. The digging season ends, and the team prepares to close the tomb and return to England for the summer. The antechamber has been mostly cleared and its contents painstakingly documented, but the great sealed doorway at the far end, the one guarded by the 2 sentinel statues, remains untouched, the burial chamber itself, and the king's sarcophagus. We'll have to wait for the next season. On your last evening, you are working late in the tomb, doing a final inventory of your drawings. You are alone, the only sound the soft hiss of your pressure lamp. Suddenly, a strange, swirling gust of wind, coming from deep within the tomb, rushes through the chamber. It is not the hot desert wind from outside. It is a cold, ancient breath from the heart of the rock. The wind hits your lamp, and the flame sputters and dies, plunging you into an absolute, suffocating darkness. It is a blackness so complete you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. The silence is total. In that moment, your rational 20th century mind vanishes. You are a primitive man, alone in the dark, in a haunted hole in the earth. The curse is not a newspaper headline. It is a real, breathing presence in the darkness with you. A wave of pure, primal terror grips you, so intense you cannot breathe, cannot scream. After an eternal, heart-stopping moment, you fumble in your pocket for your matches, your fingers clumsy and useless. You strike one. It fails. Another. It flares to life. A tiny, precious star of light. You quickly relight your lamp. It's familiar. Steady hiss, a comforting roar in the silence. You are alone. Nothing has changed. It was just a draft, a freak gust of wind. But as you stand there, your heart hammering against your ribs, you know that something within you has changed. The curse may not be real, but your fear of it, you realize with a chilling certainty, is now very real indeed. You return to Egypt for the next digging season in the autumn of 1996. The world you return to is not the same one you left. The discovery of the tomb has made the Valley of the Kings the most famous patch of ground on the planet. And the story of the Pharaoh's curse, born from a journalist's imagination, has taken on a life of its own. The atmosphere in the camp is thick with a mixture of excitement and a new, unspoken apprehension. Your first task is to assist in the final clearing of the antechamber, meticulously documenting, packing, and transporting the priceless objects. It is slow, painstaking work, performed under the watchful eyes of Egyptian government officials and the constant pressure of the world's attention. Every day, the curse is a subject of conversation. The European team jokes about it nervously. The Egyptian workers, however, do not joke. Their fear is quiet, respectful, and absolute. They perform small purification rituals before entering the tomb each day, and they whisper prayers to ward off the king's anger. It is during this time that the curse begins to work. Or rather, a series of unsettling misfortunes begins that everyone, in their own way, starts to attribute to the curse. The first incident is small, strange, and deeply symbolic. Mr. Davies, the archaeologist, has a pet canary, a small golden bird he keeps in a cage at the dig house as a cheerful companion in the dusty silence. One afternoon, the workers in the house hear a faint, distressed fluttering from inside. They rush in to find a cobra, the sacred serpent of the pharaohs, inside the cage. Having just swallowed the canary whole, the cobra, its belly full, glares at them before slithering away into the desert. When the story is told in the camp, a hush falls over the Egyptian workers. Their foreman, Rais Ahmed, comes to Mr. Davies, his face grave. "It is a sign, Effendi," he says. "The royal cobra, the protector of the king, has killed the golden bird. It is a warning. The king does not wish to be disturbed further." Davies, a man of science, dismisses it irritably. "It is a snake that ate a bird," he says. Nothing more. But the story leaks out, and the newspapers in London and Cairo run sensational headlines. Royal cobra fulfills first prophecy of curse. A cobra ate your canary. Your Egyptian foreman calmly explains that this is a magical sign that the royal serpent has killed the golden bird. You're starting to think a cat would have been a less symbolically complicated pet. After the incident of the canary, the misfortunes escalate. A key member of the European team, a strong and healthy man who has worked in Egypt for years, is suddenly struck down by a violent fever. He is taken to the hospital in Cairo, diagnosed with a severe infection, and for several weeks he lingers on the edge of death. It is almost certainly a common tropical disease. A risk you all face every day, but no one sees it that way. The whispers in the camp are immediate. The curse has claimed its first victim. Accidents at the site become more frequent. A rope on a pulley system snaps, sending a crate of packing materials crashing to the ground, a section of rock, loosened by your own excavations, detaches from the cliff face above and tumbles down, narrowly missing a group of workers. Each incident is explainable. Each one could be a coincidence, but the pattern is undeniable. It feels as if the very valley is working against you, that the ancient luck of the place has turned sour. The consequences are not only physical, they are political. The discovery of the tomb has become a symbol for the growing Egyptian nationalist movement. The new government in Cairo, eager to assert its independence from British influence, begins to use the tomb as a political lever. The Egyptian Antiquities Service, which had once been cooperative, now becomes an obstacle. They descend upon your dig site, a team of bureaucrats. They question your methods. They slow down your permits. They begin a long, arduous legal and political battle with Lord Ashworth over the ownership of the artifacts. They argue that this is not the private treasure of an English lord, but the cultural heritage of the Egyptian people. They are, of course, correct. But their interference, the endless stream of new rules and delays, feels like another facet of the curse's attack. Dealing with the vengeful spirit of a dead pharaoh is one thing. Dealing with the living bureaucrats of the Egyptian Antiquities Service is another level of horror entirely. The cumulative effect of these events, the omen of the cobra, the sickness, the accidents, the political obstruction is a slow poisoning of the expedition's morale. The initial, joyful unity is gone, replaced by suspicion and frayed nerves. Lord Ashworth, seeing his discovery being tied up in red tape and his own health beginning to suffer from the stress and the climate, grows more impatient and irritable. He and Mr. Davies, once united in their quest, now begin to argue constantly. Ashworth wants to open the burial chamber immediately, to get to the great prize. Davies insists on his slow, meticulous, scientific method. Their arguments are frequent and bitter. The mood in the camp has gone from professional excitement to a sort of slow-motion, nervous breakdown. You are caught in the middle of it all. Your nights are sleepless. The words of the curse you discovered on the Ostracon play over and over in your mind. Death will come on swift wings. You are a rational man, but you are living in a pressure cooker of fear and suggestion. You find yourself listening to the superstitions of the Egyptian workers with a new and unsettling respect. One of them gives you a small blue faience amulet of the protective god Bes. You find yourself carrying it in your pocket, a small, secret concession to the ancient fears that now permeate your world. Future historians will debate the reality of the curse. Was it a genuine supernatural force, or a toxic combination of confirmation bias, suggestion, and the natural hazards of the environment? You are living that debate. Your logical mind searches for rational explanations for every misfortune. The cobra got in through a hole in the screen. The fever is just a fever. The rockfall was caused by vibrations from the digging. But your heart, infected by the pervasive fear, connects the dots and sees a clear and malevolent pattern. The legend is being written, and you are both its author and its first victim. After months of painstaking work, the antechamber is finally cleared. Its treasures have been documented, carefully packed, and transported to a secure location. Now, all that remains is the great sealed doorway at the far end of the room, the one guarded by the two life-size sentinel statues of the king. This is the entrance to the burial chamber. This is the final barrier. The team gathers before it. The atmosphere is thick with a tension that is almost unbearable. The series of misfortunes has left everyone on edge. Lord Ashworth, looking pale and unwell, his hand trembling slightly as he wipes the sweat from his brow, is desperate to see the final prize. The long, frustrating battle with the Egyptian government has made him more determined than ever to claim the ultimate discovery for himself. The decision is made. They will breach the final wall. Mr. Davies takes up his hammer and chisel. He approaches the ancient plaster. The question is no longer just what lies inside. The question that hangs in the silent, tomb-chilled air, the question in everyone's eyes is what will happen to us when we open it. The decision to breach the final, sealed doorway into the burial chamber does not bring relief. Instead, it ratchets the tension in your small camp to an unbearable, vibrating pitch. The work is paused for 2 days to allow for final preparations. But this pause is no respite. It is a vacuum in which the expedition's frayed nerves, the weight of the world's attention, and the now constant whispering fear of the curse begin to fester and rot. The psychological center of this decay is Lord Ashworth himself. The robust, energetic nobleman you met in London is gone, replaced by a pale, irritable man burning with a fever he cannot shake. It began as a simple mosquito bite on his cheek, but in the dry, dusty air, it has become infected, and the infection has spread. He is weak, his energy sapped, but his obsession has only intensified. He knows he must soon return to England for proper medical care, and he is terrified of leaving before the ultimate discovery is made. This fear and impatience curdles his relationship with Mr. Davies. You are a helpless witness to their final, explosive argument in the main tent of the camp. We must open it now. Davies! Lord Ashworth insists, his voice a hoarse rasp. While I'm still here to see it, I have poured a king's ransom into this valley of dust for you, year after year, and you will have your discovery, my lord. Davies replies, his own voice tight with a weariness that goes beyond physical exhaustion. But we will do it properly. We will do it scientifically. We must photograph the seals, document the plaster, remove the blocking stone by stone. It will take days. I will not be rushed into a treasure hunt. Treasure hunt. Ashworth scoffs, rising unsteadily to his feet. This is my treasure, my find. I will not have it delayed by your pedantic obsession with every worthless potsherd while I am wasting away. The worthless potsherds are history. My lord, Davies retorts, his voice dangerously quiet. Something a collector of fine things may not understand. You are concerned with the prize. I am concerned with the truth, and the truth requires patience. The argument is a clash of two worlds, the passionate. Proprietary zeal of the aristocratic patron and the cold. Meticulous discipline of the field archaeologist. You try to intervene, to mediate, but you are brushed aside. They are two great stones grinding against each other, and you are just the dust between them. The weight of the dead king they have unearthed is now crushing their partnership. The poison of this conflict spreads through the camp. The European staff take sides, whispering their allegiance to either the reckless lord or the stubborn archaeologist, and the Egyptian workmen, who see Lord Ashworth's illness not as a simple infection, but as the clear mark of the pharaoh's anger. Grow more fearful than ever. Their work becomes sullen and slow. Fights break out among them. The entire expedition, once a model of disciplined cooperation, is beginning to unravel from within. The world outside the valley fuels the paranoia. The newspapers have gotten wind of Lord Ashworth's illness. The headlines are lurid and immediate. Leader of expedition struck down by Pharaoh's revenge. Curse claims first victim. Your small, scientific endeavor is no longer your own. It is a public horror story, a gothic drama being played out for the entertainment of millions. And you and your colleagues are merely characters in its narrative. Your only refuge from this rising tide of madness is your work. You retreat to the quiet of the antechamber. While the great men argue, you focus on the small, tangible details. You are tasked with overseeing the meticulous documentation of every object. Each artifact is given a number. Its exact position in the tomb is measured and mapped onto a floor plan. It is photographed from multiple angles. And then, it is your turn. You sit on your small crate, your drawing board on your lap, and you render the object in precise, scientific detail. This meticulous, almost bureaucratic process is a strange comfort. It is an island of order in a sea of chaos. You draw the intricate patterns on a painted casket, the delicate form of an alabaster vase, the hieroglyphs on a ceremonial staff. This is real. This is data. This is science. It is an anchor against the rising tide of superstition and fear that threatens to drown you all. During a quiet moment, you find yourself alone with Mr. Davies in the antechamber. He is staring at the two great sentinel statues that flank the sealed doorway. His face etched with a profound weariness. "We sought to bring a king back into the light," he says softly, more to himself than to you. "But it feels as if we have brought only darkness upon ourselves." He looks at you. Do you still believe this is just a matter of science? Young man, you don't know how to answer. Your rational mind still clings to logical explanations. But what you have experienced feels like something more. You spend your final afternoon before the breach making your last. Most important drawings of the sealed doorway itself. You stand before the two life-size statues of the king. They are carved from wood, coated in black resin, their headdresses, collars, and sandals covered in brilliant gold leaf. They stand in striding pose, holding maces and staffs. The eternal guardians of the burial chamber, their kohl-rimmed, inlaid eyes seem to stare right through you. Their expressions serene, implacable, and filled with a silent, 3,000-year-old judgment. You are the intruders. You are the defilers. And they have been waiting. You sketch their silent, powerful forms. The feeling of being watched more intense than ever. You're capturing the last moments of the tomb's perfect, unbroken peace. You are documenting the final seconds of a silence that has lasted for more than 30 centuries. That evening, a grim truce settles over the camp. Lord Ashworth, weak and shivering with fever, but his will an unbreakable rod of iron, gives the final order. "We will open the chamber tomorrow at dawn," he declares. He is determined to see inside before he is forced to abandon the dig. The team assembles one last time before the sealed entrance. The arguments are over. There is only a tense, exhausted silence. You are no longer a unified team of triumphant discoverers. You are a fractured collection of weary, haunted men, driven by obsession and bound together by a discovery that has become both a blessing and a curse. You stand before the final barrier, the weight of the dead king on your shoulders, ready to break down the door to his eternal house. Dawn breaks over the Valley of the Kings, the light sharp and clear, a grim, determined silence has settled over your team as you assemble at the sealed entrance to the burial chamber. The arguments of the previous day are over. All that is left is the work. Mr. Davies, his face a stony mask of scientific focus, directs the procedure. Once again, you and the photographer meticulously document the sealed doorway, with its necropolis seals and the clear cartouche of the king. Every detail is recorded for posterity. A final snapshot of the tomb's intact state before its 3,000-year-old peace is broken forever. Then, the work of dismantling the wall begins. It is done with a hushed reverence. The workmen, their faces a mixture of fear and awe, carefully pry the stones loose. You, Edric, and Lady Evelyn help to carry them away, each stone heavy with the weight of ages. After several hours of tense labor, a small opening is made at the top of the doorway. A wave of musty, perfumed air, thick with the scent of ancient resins and dried floral offerings, wafts out. Davies, holding a candle, peers into the darkness. "It is as I hoped," he whispers, his voice trembling with contained excitement. The chamber is filled, I can see. A wall of gold. The work continues with renewed, feverish energy. The opening is widened until it is large enough for a person to step through. The four of you, Lord Ashworth. Leaning on his daughter's arm for support, Mr. Davies, his face gleaming with sweat and triumph. And you are the first to enter. You step from the antechamber into the burial chamber itself, and the sight stops your breath. The room is small, and it is almost entirely filled by a single, monolithic object, a massive shrine, as big as a small room itself, constructed of wood and completely overlaid with brilliant gold leaf. Its sides are decorated with the figures of protective gods and magical symbols. Its great double doors are closed, sealed with a rope and a perfect, unbroken clay seal bearing the jackal of Anubis. This is but the outermost of what you suspect is a series of nested shrines, like a set of Russian dolls containing the king's sarcophagus at its heart. The air in the chamber is deathly still, sacred, and profoundly intimidating. You have finally reached the Holy of Holies, the eternal resting place of the king. You feel like a trespasser of the highest order, a blasphemer in the face of the divine. Lord Ashworth stumbles forward, his eyes wide with a look of ecstatic, almost delirious triumph. This is the culmination of his life's work, the vindication of his obsessive dream. "We have found him," he breathes, his hand reaching out as if to touch the golden surface of the shrine. "We have truly found him." It is in this moment of supreme triumph that the final, terrible consequence manifests. As Lord Ashworth leans forward, a wave of dizziness from his fever overcomes him. He stumbles against the rough, unfinished wall of the tomb, his cheek scraping against the limestone. He cries out, a small sound of pain and annoyance, and puts a hand to his face. He draws it away and you see a smear of blood. The infected mosquito bite on his cheek, which had been swollen and angry, has been torn open. "It's nothing," he says, waving away his daughter's concern, but the moment is a turning point. The small, mundane injury, in this sacred, highly charged space, feels like a terrible omen. It is the infected kiss of the chapter's title, a grim counterpoint to the golden splendor of the discovery. Lord Ashworth's strength fails him rapidly after that. The fever, which had been a persistent nuisance, now seems to rage with a new intensity. He is gripped by violent shivers. He has to be helped out of the tomb and back to the dig house. His moment of glory cut short by the sudden, vicious rebellion of his own body. The work is halted. A doctor is summoned from Luxor, then a specialist from Cairo. But Lord Ashworth's condition only worsens. The infection on his cheek spreads, leading to blood poisoning. Pneumonia sets in, filling his lungs. The man who had commanded this great expedition now lies helpless in his bed, lost in a feverish delirium. He is moved to the Continental Savoy Hotel in Cairo for better care, but everyone knows it is hopeless. The news electrifies the world's press, who are gathered like vultures in the hotel lobby. The narrative is irresistible. The wealthy English lord, the man who dared to break the seals of a pharaoh's tomb, is now dying. The curse, which had been a sensationalist fantasy, suddenly feels terrifyingly real. You and the rest of the team remain in Luxor, waiting for news. Your work forgotten. The great golden shrine waiting in its silent chamber. The mood is one of profound dread. Was it just a mosquito bite? An infection made worse by stress and the harsh climate? Or was it something more? Was the pharaoh's magic so subtle that it could use a common insect as its weapon, turning a mundane nuisance into a fatal blow? Your rational mind fights against the idea, but the superstitious fear that has been building for months now finds its ultimate validation. The end comes a few weeks later. A telegram arrives at the dig house. Lord Ashworth has died, and with the news of his death comes another. Stranger report. At the very moment Lord Ashworth passed away in his Cairo hotel room, the entire city of Cairo suffered a sudden, inexplicable power failure, plunging every street and building into total darkness for several minutes. The Great Cairo Blackout, as the papers call it, is seen as the pharaoh's final, dramatic gesture, a city-wide mourning for his slumbering peace, and a terrifying display of his far-reaching power. You stand in the desert camp, the telegram in your hand. The Valley of the Kings is silent before you, the entrance to your great discovery now sealed and guarded. A place of triumph that has become a place of tragedy. The curse has claimed its patron. The man whose dream and whose fortune made all of this possible is dead. His name now forever linked not just with the greatest archaeological discovery in history, but with the most famous curse. You look at the faces of your colleagues. Mr. Davies, Lady Evelyn, the others. You see your own fear and confusion reflected in their eyes. The joy of the wonderful things you found is gone, replaced by a cold, nagging question that will haunt you for the rest of your lives. Who will be next? The death of Lord Ashworth does not end the story of the tomb. It ensures the legend of its curse will live forever. The work is halted for the better part of a year, a period of mourning, legal battles, and a profound, fearful uncertainty. The world's newspapers have a feeding frenzy, publishing any rumor, any tale of woe connected to the expedition. The curse is now a fact in the public mind, but the work must continue. Lady Evelyn, Lord Ashworth's daughter, with a quiet strength and a determination to honor her father's legacy, provides the will to go on. And Mr. Davies, though heartbroken by the loss of his friend and patron, is a man of science, and his life's work lies waiting in that sealed stone chamber. And so, you return. But the atmosphere is irrevocably changed. The joy of discovery has been replaced by a grim, solemn sense of duty. You and the team, smaller now, and more somber, finally open the burial chamber wide. The work of dismantling the great golden shrines begins. It is a slow, meticulous process that takes years. You carefully document and draw each shrine as it is taken apart, revealing another, smaller one within. Like peeling the layers of a golden onion, inside the final shrine, you find the great quartzite sarcophagus. When its massive lid is raised, you see the breathtaking sight of the king's nested coffins, culminating in the final one of solid, beaten gold, and within it, the magnificent, serene death mask of the boy king. Each stage of this discovery, a moment that should have been one of pure triumph, is now tinged with a constant, low-level dread. Every time a worker coughs, every time a tool is dropped, there is a flicker of fear in everyone's eyes. The list of the curse's victims grows over the years. Curated by an eager press, an Egyptian prince who visited the tomb is assassinated months later. A radio expert who helped X-ray the coffin dies of a sudden illness back in London. A museum director who handled the artifacts falls from a building. Each death has a logical, worldly explanation, political turmoil. Lead poisoning. Suicide. But the world is no longer interested in logical explanations. The story of the curse is more powerful. It adds each name to the grim ledger. You learn that a dozen people connected to the tomb dying over 20 years from perfectly normal causes is not a story, but calling it a curse that claims them one by one that sells newspapers. You and the other core members of the team become the reluctant survivors. You live out your life under the shadow of the discovery. You are famous, not for the beauty and precision of your drawings, but for the simple fact that you were there, that you looked upon the face of the king and were not struck down. People ask you what it was like to be cursed. You want to tell them it was mostly dusty and involved a lot of paperwork. But that's not the story they want to hear. And now, many years later, you are an old man. You sit in your quiet study in the English countryside, a place of rain and green fields, a world away from the heat and dust of the valley. On your wall hangs a single, framed drawing your own rendering of one of the calcite vases from the antechamber. Your personal, quiet reminder of the great adventure of your life. You have had a lifetime to reflect on the so-called curse, to separate the facts from the legends that have grown up around them like weeds on an ancient wall. You know the truth. You know that Lord Ashworth, a man whose health was already fragile, died of a common infection in an era before antibiotics. You know the other victims died of their own understandable, if tragic, causes. You've even read the modern theories. That toxic. Dormant molds sealed in the tomb for millennia could have weakened the immune systems of those who entered. It is all plausible. It is all rational. But you also know that the curse was real. It was not a supernatural force that flew on swift wings from the tomb. The curse was the discovery itself. It was the sudden, blinding glare of global fame. A pressure that shattered partnerships and frayed nerves. It was the curse of greed and nationalism, as men and nations fought over the ownership of the golden treasures, and most profoundly, it was a psychological curse. A curse of suggestion and fear. The ancient warning on that small piece of pottery was a seed, planted in the fertile ground of human superstition. The newspapers watered it, and the world's fascination made it grow into a great, dark tree that overshadowed everything. It created a world where every coincidence became a conspiracy, every illness a judgment, every death a fulfillment of the prophecy. You survived, you believe, because you were a simple draftsman, a man whose job was to observe and record, not to own. You were a witness, and the curse, whatever its nature, was not aimed at you. You look at your drawing on the wall. The real treasure was not the gold, but the knowledge, the chance to look upon a perfect, untouched moment of the ancient past. The real tragedy was not the curse, but the fact that the wonder of the discovery would forever be entangled with a miserable, frightening legend born of fear and headlines. And so, the story ends. Not with a bang, but with the quiet reflections of an old man in his study. The thrill and the terror have faded, leaving behind only the complex truth. Like a faded photograph, the golden mask of the young king now rests behind climate-controlled glass in a great museum. His unblinking gaze no longer a source of fear, but of wonder and of history. The tomb in the valley is sealed again. A silent, empty chamber, its treasures now belonging to the world. The curse has become what it always was, a story. A good, spooky, and miserable story, but a story nonetheless. Let the dust of that long-ago valley settle now. Let the whispers of the curse fade into the silence of your own quiet room. The treasures are safe. The ghosts are at rest. The consequences, however terrible, are a part of a history that is now closed. There is nothing to fear here. There is only the stillness of the night, the comfort of your own bed, and the gentle, welcome peace that comes at the end of a long and fascinating tale.